Hey, what's up, fellow Age Groupies? Welcome to another episode of the Age Groupies Podcast. I'm Mike Ergo, and along with my co-host Lindsay Hiken, we're here to talk to you about all things related to endurance sports from an amateur athlete perspective. We talk about how to have fun along the way and stop taking ourselves so seriously all the time. You can follow the show on Instagram at Age Groupies, join the Age Groupies page on Facebook, and look us up by name, Lindsay Hiken and Mike Ergo on Strava. If you have any questions, comments, or topic ideas, feel free to hit us up at agegroupies@gmail.com. And if you guys like the show, leave us a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps us get the word out there. So, today's episode, really fun. I really enjoyed this one. I enjoy all the episodes, but this one was just a fun episode. We talked to Audra Adair, who is the coach of two-time guest Eddie Kenny. And we had her on before talking about Eddie Kenny's 26 and 52 training program, where he's doing 26 70.3 mile triathlons in 1 year. But we decided we needed to talk to Audra about her experience, not only in racing, but in coaching. So we had a lot of fun. And yes, she is a complete badass in the sport. And she has been to Kona multiple times and crushed it. So she is a human freak in nature, but in all seriousness, good person, really fun interview, and check out her on racerelentless.com, links in the show notes. So without all that being said, let's get to the show. Audra, welcome to the show. Thanks for being on Age Groupies.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, how you doing out there?
I'm doing good. Looking forward to some fall weather.
Yes, I know. Out here in California, we've been looking forward to fall weather for quite a while now with all the fires we've had. So rain would be awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what's your schedule looking like right these days for coaching?
Schedule looking like for coaching. I guess really it's a lot of mentoring, a lot more mentoring than I've been doing in the past, just because this season's been so off, like nobody's racing, right? And now everybody's like scrambling to figure out what we're going to do for 2021. So a lot of it's been planning, taking this year and like pushing it into next year and figuring out how we can like work everything into the schedule. So been doing a lot of race season planning and pre-race season planning right now.
Nice.
Just in case coaching wasn't hard enough, now you have to try to like transfer 2020 plans into 2021 and try to adapt. Is that a hassle to try to adapt people's like training plans into like fit the schedule for next year and temper expectations about when racing is going to happen?
Yeah, it has been difficult. Being able to get everybody to just to relax, because that's it, right? This type A personality, everybody's just like, tell me what's going to happen. Is the race going to happen? And I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. I know as much as you do. Like, I don't have any insider knowledge. So if it happens, it happens. But, always be prepared is what I've kind of like really been pushing everybody with this year, is like, we don't know when things will happen again. So if they pick back up at the end of this year, they pick back up at the beginning of next year, you have to always be prepared, because if you're not, then you're not ready to race. And then you're going to look back at this time you spent not training for a race expectation that you were having. And then you're left at the starting line, not prepared, or not getting to the starting line at all. So,
yeah.
For our listeners who may not have heard, Audra was on episode 99 with Eddie Kenny. So she coaches him and he's doing the 26 halves in 2020. And so one of the things that's cool is how he pivoted and to do those self-supported races. And I'm thinking you probably learned a lot about coaching someone through self-supported. So, in the event that 2021 doesn't happen, you've got some good ideas and ways to.
Right.
So did you have to change sort of your style of coaching to coach people through the pandemic?
Absolutely. I really had to do a lot of talking people off the edge of just giving up the sport completely. So we had to think on our feet. We had to be really, really creative. We had to, rather than everybody was just getting tired of swim, bike, run with there's no races on the calendar, right? Just burnout was actually higher this year than it was like when people were racing, right? People are motivated by racing. So there's a lot of extrinsic motivation there. So I had to pull everybody back into this intrinsic motivation kind of mode and figure out what made them work and how we could do that. So we had to get back to the whys, we had to get back to the fun, and rather than just the socialization of doing triathlon, which is a big component for most people. So that was probably the biggest challenge, but we've really been successful in doing that with mixing it up. I mean, so sometimes we were, rather than just doing, and this is for all my athletes, not just Ed, but rather than just doing swim, bike, run every week, we did some different kind of gym workouts and some HIIT style training and some different kind of weight training and then some cross training here. And we did like some virtual races and I had them like race against me. And we did a lot of like happy hour, meetings during the week where we'd all get together and have a few drinks via Zoom or whatever. And then bitch and complain about everything in the world, which was really nice to do. And so I think as a group, with all my athletes, we've really bonded this year. We've really relied on each other and leaned on each other. And I've leaned on them, they've leaned on me just for support, not even just from an athlete, standpoint, triathlete standpoint, really from just being a human standpoint and how relationships have shifted, whether those, work relationships or personal relationships, how the relationships have shifted in their athletic careers between them and I and at home. So it's been a lot of that type of finding the new motivation and why we're doing this and what's the purpose of this anyway. If there's no races on the schedule, then why do I even train? Why do I even need a coach? So that's been the changes this year.
Yeah. I'm one of those people who, I didn't give up on the sport, but I definitely just, I had was being coached by Wes, who was on a few episodes before you and Eddie, and I just was like, I'm not doing anything, and I'm getting ready to fire up with him again, and I just had this conversation of like, basically now he has to do all the stuff that you just talked about that you were just doing all year with me now, because I just fell off completely, and it's like I don't like feeling in my body actually. So kudos to your athletes for sticking with it, because I can say that if you didn't, for me anyway, I have this feeling in my body of like just kind of like, you know what I mean? Just I'm out of, I don't like it. It's
you feel out of whack. You're just like, I don't feel like an athlete anymore. Like my body just doesn't feel like my body. Yeah, totally. And
yes.
I had this, like, I had to drill this into everybody's head all the time. And this is where my military background comes in handy, right? I'm just like, we always are prepared. We are mission ready all the time, because you don't ever know when something's going to be put upon you, right? Like you may decide you want to do like a crazy bike packing trip with some buddies, right? So you have to be prepared for that. Races may be on the schedule. You may just throw together some kind of event with your friends. So, or you may be doing all these cool virtual races. So you must always be prepared for mission ready all the time. So I was driving that home all the time. And the other thing was, like you just said, right? If you kind of give up on this season or the year because, like things aren't happening or whatever, and we just kind of get demoralized from that aspect, then you're losing all this fitness, right? And just, you're kind of starting from ground zero again. So if that wasn't motivation enough, then I just took everybody and said, hey, listen, like these are your list of weaknesses. These are your list of strengths. These are the injuries you've had in the past. This is, projected performance stuff. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's look under the covers and realize, we got to work on some pelvic stabilization. We have to work on some glute med activation. We've got to work on some lateral core strength. So let's use this time to build tons of muscle, build all those things that we kind of neglect during the time where we're trying to race and we're trying to build fitness at the same time. And it's hard to throw all that stuff into the mix. It's just time consuming, right? So let's take the swim, bike, run. Let's, dose down those hours a little bit, and let's pump up the hours of all this, corrective exercise type of stuff and performance enhancing, weight training and strength training and mobility work. And that shift has been really nice for them. And it's kind of given them a break too, and re-motivated them for like a long season ahead, where they're taking all the races from 2020 and putting them in 2021. And it's like a redo, and they're excited about the redo because they're really prepared for the redo more than they were if they just raced in 2020. Right. So
that makes sense.
That's awesome.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And cognitively, I understand about being ready at all times. And then I have my emotional brain that's saying like, yeah, I guess so. So it seems like that's the part that needs to be convinced for a lot of athletes. And how do you drill down and find that why with your athletes?
when they're struggling to maintain that schedule?
Yeah. How do I do that? I don't know.
It seems like you have a very like straightforward approach. Like in the Marine Corps, we had that knife hand and get in someone's face and be like, "Hey, you listen up."
Right. Yeah. I don't sugarcoat much, and we don't dance around things very often. So, and I've been with, some athletes I've coached for 7-10 years. Right. So we built a relationship. There's a bond there. They're not just my athletes. They're my friends, like somewhat family now. So I know what makes them tick. And how to get into there. And I know that their whys are, and so that helps. But with new athletes and people that I have only been working with for maybe a year or two, it was really just, if there were no more races on the schedule ever again, if the triathlon didn't exist, would you want to be a fit human being? And how fit of a human being would you want to be? Like, what other things would you like to do outside of triathlon? Do you want to be fit enough to go snowboarding, go surfing, go, hiking with your kid? Like, what type of fitness would you like to have if triathlon didn't exist? And is that your why? Because you want to be able to do those things outside of triathlon and inside of triathlon. And I think that really kind of pulled people back into why they're actually doing this. They're doing this because they want to feel like an athlete, like you had said earlier, right? You want to feel like an athlete. You want to feel capable and able to do anything that you want to do when that time arises and you want to do it, whether it's a race or whether it's just a life event.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. Because I think with coaching, like you said, so for me, it's like I've been active this whole year, but without any direction. So like I kept moving, but no direction. And so I did do a 100-mile ride. So I trained it for that. And then after that, I let it go. But I think that readiness is key, because then when other things have come up for me, it's like, well, I've been, a little mountain biking, a little hiking, a little like nothing, you know what I mean? So,
right.
So to have I think that readiness is huge. And I like the idea of just, Mike and I've talked a lot about embracing it as a lifestyle. And we've said, triathlon is a lifestyle, but I think what we really mean is just fitness as a lifestyle, and having that connection with, the outdoors and with your body. And my experience is that without some coaching, I kind of get like off track in terms of being able to really do the things I actually like to do, which is going a little bit longer maybe than a 20-mile ride. You know what I mean?
You and me both. And so you guys were just talking about this, and I just thought about, just like to turn it back onto me as an athlete, right? Is that I had signed up, all these races got canceled. Lake Placid was going to be my qualifying race for Kona. And so I was like geared up, ready to go, and ready to do that race. And I was training up until it finally got canceled. Right. And I was like, oh man. So then I went ahead and registered for Ironman Florida. And I was like, I'll do Ironman Florida. Then I'll get a qualifying spot for next year when they were going to have Ironman World Championships in February. And then, everything kept getting canceled. And I just fell off the wagon. I didn't have a coach. I was self-coaching myself. I took a break from coaching after Kona last year, just so I could, take a mental break. And so just like you, right? I was like staying fit, and I was exercising and doing all these things that I know to do just because I like to be a fit, active human being, right? But I wasn't training. And then as soon as they sent the email out and they were like, oh, we're going to do the race is on, we're doing it. I was like, shit. I was like, I am so not prepared, right? Like I was just like, so not. And so I sat down, I called a friend coach, and I was like, is this possible? Like, am I an idiot? And he was like, you'd probably get through it just fine. He's like, you actually may have a okay day. He's like, but are you going to win? No. Are you going to like embarrass yourself? Probably. And I was like, F you, and you're right. So I had to went ahead and transferred it to next year because he was right. Like anyway, but so I didn't heed the same thing that I had said to my athletes this year because I didn't. Like maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it was an ego thing of I thought I could just do it if I just wanted to do it. I didn't have to train to do it. But yeah, so I did the same thing, right? I just kind of like.
Mike here. I want to talk to you about UCAN Superstarch. UCAN is what I consume on the race course and for long or intense training sessions. Now, it's different than any sports nutrition out there because they use superstarch. Superstarch is a complex carbohydrate that doesn't spike blood sugar, delivering a slow and steady release of glucose into the bloodstream. Stable blood sugar provides steady energy to both the muscles and the brain and controls cravings caused by blood sugar lows. I recently used this to complete the Pandemic Man 70.3 using only UCAN. And let me tell you guys, I was surprised by how well it worked. Pleasantly surprised. I didn't need to use any gels, anything, just UCAN. And I felt great. I didn't feel bloated, didn't feel hungry, didn't have any of those intense cravings I get on the race course a lot. So I want you to try it out too. Learn about why you should fuel the pursuit with UCAN and save 10% on all your orders by using the link in the show notes or entering the promo code UCANInspireMe at checkout. That's UCANINSPIREME at checkout. Thanks.
Yep. Yeah, there's difference between active and actually like trained and fit. There's a difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we ask, I mean, you alluded to qualifying for Kona, and you've been there, is it 5 or 6 times?
I've qualified 7 times and raced it 4.
Okay.
Holy moly.
Let's dive back into, how'd you get into the sport, first of all?
So really funny. So my ex-husband was a big biker and he wanted to get a time trial bike. So he came home one day with 2 time trial bikes because, that's okay.
Yeah.
One was for me. So one was for me and one was for him. And I was like, what am I going to do with this thing? And he was like, you should do triathlon. You're a really good runner. You should do triathlons. And I was like, really? And I said, I don't even know how to swim. Like I can swim and not drown, but like I can't swim. So I was in the gym one day and found this girl that was doing pull-ups. And I was like, dude, your back is ripped up. And she was like, oh yeah, I just swim in college. And she was like, your legs are ripped up. I'm like, oh yeah, I run. I was like, you teach me how to swim. I'll teach you how to run. Bam.
Ah, yes.
Did my first sprint triathlon about 4 weeks later and I won. And I was like, oh, I'm good at this. I should just keep doing it. And that's how it started.
Yeah. So success like right off the bat.
I may not be here now. If I would have like not finished first or not finished with like feeling really good, I probably would have like thrown the bike on the ground and I would never been a triathlete.
So you've been running for years before that. You got that's your main sport.
Yeah. Started with a background.
Did you grow up playing any other sports?
I grew up playing basketball, soccer, and like cross country and track.
Okay. So like all of them.
All the running sports.
Yeah. Sure. And this step up from sprints to, would you go for Olympics next and then half and full like that?
Yep, I did. And so my kids were little. I have 3 kids, and so they were really little. So I just kind of kept the 2 Olympics and halves. And then eventually I just kind of ripped off the Band-Aid and was like, I should just probably do an Ironman. And the reason why I thought that was like, I was like, okay, I should do a marathon. And then I was like, okay. So I did this marathon on a whim. I stayed up all night long setting up the Nike's Women's Marathon in San Francisco. And at 4 a.m, I was like, dude, I should just run this thing. I was like, somebody give me a pair of shoes. Hey, Beth, give me your bra. Like, I'm just going to go run this thing. And I was like, I'm going to take my phone. And if I die, somebody come get me. Anyway, so that was my first marathon. And then I finished with that. And then I was like, okay, I gotta, like, it's time to like throw some big balls and do an Ironman. And that's how that kind of came into effect, was from doing that one and then just finally doing that. And then I did my first Ironman, I think maybe a year later. I can't remember exact timeline, maybe a year later, and I think I went 10:10, missed a Kona slot by 2 minutes. And
oh my God, 10:10.
And I was just hooked. And I was just like, oh, like I'm good at this distance. Like I'm good at enduring and I'm good at thinking on my feet and being able to problem solve while I'm still going. And so then once again, like if I had a really crappy day the first day, then I may have never done another Ironman.
Yeah.
But because it went really well, and I was like, oh, you're good at this. You should do this. And everything else in my life. When I suck at it, I don't do it. When I'm good at it, I keep doing it.
So if you're out there 5 hours longer, like I was on my first Ironman, you might not have done another one.
Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, I think going 15 hours is so much harder than going 10. Like being on your feet longer is so much harder. But yeah, maybe not.
I'd go 10 if I could, but that doesn't seem to be happening.
Never know. Don't put that limitation on yourself.
Okay. That's awesome. So qualified for Kona 7 and went 4. Did you not go the other 3 because of any, like, just scheduling, family, or was there injury, or what was the reason?
Because I had already qualified. So
excuse me.
But they were already like I raced Arizona and got a slot for next year. So then I raced Texas as like a whatever. you know, an Ironman to do before Kona, you know what I mean? Just to prep or whatever. And then
that makes sense.
How it is. Just an Ironman to do before Kona and then just qualifying.
Which one was first?
Which was my first?
Yeah.
Arizona.
Okay. Yeah, that one is on my list, but actually God, that might be the only one that happens this year. It looks like
Florida
too. That's right. Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So, what tips do you have for someone who's going to Kona, maybe who is not the elite athlete, but is doing, you know, like Ironman Foundation? I know Mike's been before, he's going again, but someone who's like a more of an age group type athlete, non-elite, who might somehow be randomly going to Kona, they want to slot, or they're doing a fundraiser or whatever it is, to get through that race, because I understand there's some additional challenges just with the like with wind and with, you know, the environment, the ocean swim. So what would be kind of your experience with, or not experience because you're not an elite, but more like advice?
Advice for prepping for that, or advice for race day, or
maybe a little advice for race day.
Seriously, as with every Ironman or half Ironman or whatever race you're doing, just have fun. Like, we do this to have fun. Like, nobody is paying me money to do this. I'm paying money to do this thing. I am spending my hard-earned cash to do this thing. So you're gonna have fun. Like, enjoy yourself, right? And enjoying yourself means pushing yourself to the limit, or enjoying yourself means, you know, saying hi to all the volunteers and making a friend on the race course. Then whatever your fun is, have fun with it, right? And that's because you may not ever get this opportunity again. And this Kona is such a special place. And everybody always says this, it's such a special place, but it's going to be so overwhelming the first time you go, right? It's a circus of triathlon, everything, right? Yeah. Everything. And there's going to be so many events to go to, and so many like breakfast and lunch things to meet pros and to like sponsorship stuff. And you know what, if it's your first time going and you don't think you're going to go back, do everything, like soak it all in. Like, it's not going to like make you have a bad race day because you went to a breakfast and a lunch and you went out to dinner and you may have not gotten more of an hour of sleep or whatever. Like, that's bull crap. So go soak it all in and do everything, right? Do all the things that you can do, right? And tell everybody it's your first one, because they teach you even more special, right? And give you even more stuff. So, you know, that, awesome. And really, you know, when you're out there during the day, just remember that everybody is going through the same thing. And that's with every Ironman, but with Kona especially, because it's such a bonding experience when you do this, right? You'll meet other athletes that have been to Kona, and then you kind of look at each other and you're like Mike, you know, you're like, you remember that? Like, remember those howling winds on the Queen K? And I was on my bike, you remember, like, you know, and you kind of like, it's like, and not to downgrade going to battle, you know, right? Battle buddy, right? But it feels kind of that way, right? It's a very great bonding experience for sure. So take that
solidarity.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I have one other little tip that I learned the hard way, is that if you put sunscreen on the night before, that actually helps. I waited until the day of, but then I got the pro tip way afterwards by a sunscreen company that says, yeah, no, all the pros put it on a huge coat, take a shower, put a huge coat on, and then the next day you put a lighter coat on. I was like, that would have been helpful to know. That would have been very helpful to know, as you can see by my race photos.
You just burned up. Yeah.
And then for weeks afterwards. I do that. I even do that. Like, if I'm going to have like a long bike ride on a Saturday, I do that on Friday night. And that's been a staple forever. Something with a lot of zinc in it, for sure. But very good tip. Very good tip.
That's awesome. Yeah. I know a couple of people that did Kona just on the lottery. And I've always thought I would never fill out that form in case I accidentally got picked, because I don't know that I would be ready to go.
Then you'd have to do it.
Right. I'm like, I don't think because I always think of it as being so much, you know, for some reason in my mind, I feel like it's more difficult than other Ironmans, but that's probably not really true if you think about it. I mean, Ironman is long no matter where it is, and stuff's going to happen. And there's going to be challenges with wind or sun or rain or cold or your own gastrointestinal system.
Right. I think the elements can be really brutal in Kona, as they can be brutal anywhere, right? But they can be especially brutal in Kona. But I think and it's just like other Ironman, like you said. So you get through it. But I think in some aspects it's easier because you have such a huge crowd out there. And so and even way out on the Queen K, there's people in the middle of nowhere, like there to cheer you on. So you never feel alone as you may feel like in other Ironmans. So people are always out there cheering. So that sense kind of like hypes you up just a little bit. You're like, I'm playing with the big dogs, like that will hype you up. And in the other specs, sometimes it's a little bit harder because you are like, you look around, you're like, does anybody have more than 1% body fat? Is anybody? And you're like, I shouldn't be here. Like I've gone and like, I don't belong here. Like, what is going on? Like, who are these people? Are they real? So anyway, so on both ends of the spectrum, it can make it an easier race or a harder race, but you'd be fine.
What is your favorite part of race week leading up to the race? Because there's so many like festivities and things happening.
Of Kona? What's my favorite? For
Kona.
Oh, geez. I don't know. I feel so like salty right now because I'm like it's a military term. I feel salty because I've gone like 4 times and I've gone there just to like spectate and hang out. So I've been there like 10 times. So I'm like, so the underwear run is highly overrated. It's like the thing that everybody talks about, right? Is the underwear run, but whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a good question. And I don't know what my personal favorite is Fat Load Tuesday. So I fat load every Tuesday before Ironman. And that's my favorite day because I get to eat a lot of fat. So
tell us about that a little bit.
Is it like poke or what is it?
Oh, well, no, like French fries and hamburger and like ice cream.
Oh, just like full on.
Full on, like avocado, like big fat load. And then I stop eating fat like the rest of the week so my body can digest it. So I'm not like having GI issues for the rest of the week, but load up on that fat stores and high energy kind of that way. And then like take off the fat the rest of the week. So my belly, like fat and fiber off the rest of the week. But so Fat Load Tuesdays are my favorite. And everybody else that hangs out with me, their favorite too.
This would be the Tuesday before the race. So like if race is on Sunday, we're talking the Tuesday right before it.
Right. Yeah. If the race is on Saturday, then it would be Monday.
Saturday. Yeah. That's awesome. I did not know that. And the fiber, that's a good point.
Oh yeah.
I tend to eat plant-based diet if I want, like, so I was for, Santa Rosa. And so a lot of fiber in that diet.
Yeah. You got to really cut that out, especially 2 days before, but if you can do it at least 4 or 5 days before and just like go back to simple carbohydrates, like your potatoes and your rice, and you can keep it plant-based, but
yeah, that makes a lot of sense actually.
It's hard for your body to digest fiber and fat, and you don't want to be doing that on race day. We all know how that is.
Yes, I saw them. Trust me, if you're out there for 15 hours, you're seeing a lot of that on the back end of that race. I mean, people are just
literally.
Oh yeah, in the back end. Yeah, I still remember my first Ironman at Santa Rosa, like going past a guy who was hunched over 90 degrees and it looked like he was dry heaving. And I'm like, hey, you good, bud? You need any help? And he just put his hand up. He's just like, didn't even speak. That's always a treat to walk by. Outside of Kona, Audra, what's your favorite race?
I think Challenge Roth was my favorite. And I think I would have to say, like, don't tell anybody this, but I think it's definitely my favorite Ironman overall, like even over Kona. For sure.
Oh wow!
I've heard it's a really, really fun race, and
it is. It is. Challenge does an amazing job putting on this. The logistics are a little bit difficult because T1 and T2 are in different spots, but I mean the roads are lined with people for the entire bike portion of the race, and Solar Hill has got people that are like touching you and like cheering you like it's the Alpe d'Huez and the Tour de France, and it's just it is. And then you're running. I'm all getting excited.
Yeah.
And then you're running this. You're running your marathon and you're running on cobblestone streets, and people are out drinking their beer and eating their like bratwurst, and like it's just, and they're just cheering you on, and it's like people are picnicking on the side. It's just the most amazing venue. It's an amazing venue.
I know a group that went over there, and my friend Michelle said they had her, because they had the name on the bib. And she said at one point she was getting kind of tired, but then all of a sudden these people were like, Michelle. And she was like, oh, okay. She had her, she PR'd on that course.
Yeah, no. So I think I have to say that would be my favorite thus far. And racing in Europe is just different than racing in the US for sure.
Let's talk about that for a minute. I'd just like to hear your thoughts about that, because I have, I'm doing Austria 2022. That's my plan anyway.
Yeah.
I want to do a destination race. I've never done one. So that's kind of what I've chosen. I'm trying to get Mike to come with me. And but what would you say would be the differences in terms of doing a destination race in Europe versus, flying to somewhere in, the United States and just racing?
Is this off the record?
Yes.
Yeah, we can take it off the record.
Okay. So I'm salty, right? I've been racing 20 something years, right? So I've seen triathlon change in 2 decades, right? And racing in the United States, I feel like nobody cares about you. I feel like you're just a person that's paid some money and did a race. Now get out of here.
Yeah.
Right. So, the swag is crappy. The expo is usually crappy. The post-race food is really crappy. Sometimes the aid stations are good. Sometimes they're not. The support doesn't feel the same. There's not as much support from local people or even from the organization within the continental United States. And you go to Europe, it's a whole nother vibe. It is, we are excited that you're here. We're going to put on this wonderful, pre-Ironman event, night or whatever, the pre-night thing. The expo is going to be rocking awesome. The post-race food is going to be amazing. Like they take it to heart. Like they're representing themselves as a city or, as a country. And so you feel like, right? Like, it's like going to somebody's home, right? They're like, welcome to my home. I'm going to put on the best presentation for you I possibly can because I want you to come back to my house and I want you to say nice things about me. And that's how it feels when you race. Even when I went to Canada to race Mont Tremblant, I felt the same way. It's, welcome to Canada. We are so happy that you're here. We want you to come back. We're going to do everything to make your stay pleasant. So you give us a good Yelp review. I mean, that's the difference. And I really wish, and I hope for their sake that WTC steps up the game. And you
That'd be nice.
If you've ever done like a challenge event versus a WTC event, there's a difference. Mm-hmm. And it's just the level of care. That's it.
I've heard that. I have not personally done a challenge event, but I've heard several times that they just put on such great events.
They do
in comparison. So that's interesting.
So
all right, well, that makes me even more excited to go over there. And
it makes me excited for it too. I just might have to do that with you, Lindsay.
I think you just sold them. Thanks, Audra.
You're welcome. Yeah.
You're welcome to join us. I mean, I won't be seeing you. You'll be done clearly. 5-6 hours.
I will bring you beer and whatever you want to the finish line. I will be your beer bitch. Do not worry. I got you.
Pastries. Like some pastries.
Well, do you have any? It's a good note to go out on. Do you have any tips for athletes who are struggling to find their why or to get motivated for this year with all the uncertainty around when races are going to happen?
Do I have any advice on finding your why?
Finding your why or just getting your ass in gear?
Besides just doing it?
Well, maybe that is the answer. Maybe it is just doing it.
So I teach wellness and physiology for the Navy, and I've been really working on this concept of self-continuity, right? Do you guys know what self-continuity is?
No, tell us. Okay.
So it's basically, in a nutshell, how you relate to your future self, how your present self, the relationship between your future self and your present self, right? And what we want to do is we want to make that relationship extremely close so that your present self will do things for your future self. So I have my athletes and I have my Navy personnel and my kids, I made my kids do this. I have them write a letter, their future self, and you can do that from like next year. Let's say you're going to race, 2022 Australia, right? That person writes a letter to the person you are now. And what do you think that person's going to say to you? Like, I'm really glad you didn't train. I'm really glad you sat on your ass and, drank an extra couple beers. Like, really good. I'm feeling like shit on this race course today because you didn't pull your weight last year. Like, hell no, you're not going to say that to yourself, right?
Yeah.
Your self on starting line, that person is going to tell your person right now, get your ass in gear. Like, I'm going to need you to work yourself up to where I want to be today. And we got to start. We got to start now. So that self-continuity really plays a good effect on how we treat ourselves now. So you got to build that relationship between those two people, that future person and that our future athlete and
Yeah.
that present athlete.
That's an awesome concept. I like that idea because it really connects the two things. Because without that, you're just kind of thinking, well, what do I feel like doing today? And maybe I'll just figure it out tomorrow. And that you're never going to just figure it out tomorrow if you put it off.
We know from research that we are not going to sacrifice things that we want today for our future selves if we can't relate to our future selves, right? We're not going to not have the ice cream after dinner if we want to lose weight. We're not going to not save money for retirement if we don't really, see our future selves. So we have to build that relationship with the two people so we can sacrifice now for what we want in the future. But you have to connect to that person, who that person is. And we're so now people and instant gratification people that we really can't relate to that future person. So build that self-continuity.
That is amazing advice. I love that. I mean, I've not heard that term, but that makes so much sense. And the idea of writing a letter, because you're right. It's like, where do you want to be a year from now? And having that person write back is it's true, because you don't want to say like, well, I kicked the can down thanks for kicking the can down the street this whole time and not doing any of the stuff that I'm going to do that.
Yeah. I'm so proud of you for going out and getting donuts instead of doing your long run. That was such a great move.
Right. I'm so proud of you for, being lazy or whatever. So, and I asked them to, we talk about, when were you the most proud of yourself, or when did you feel the best as an athlete? And let's summarize that. Let's make a, summary of that, and then relate that back to who you are now and how close are you to that person? What's that correlation between those two people, and how do we get you back to feeling like that, proud athlete or proud person or proud Navy personnel? We got to get you back to that point.
I mean, this is just like, she just laid down some tips for how to like live your entire life at this point.
Yeah.
Damn.
We just solved all of the problems.
So are you taking on athletes, and how can people get in touch with you if so?
Yeah, I'm building the roster now. So people can get onto the Race Relentless website, and there is a contact form inside that. Just hit the contact link and it will send me an email with your information and let me know what your goals are, and I'll reach out to you. Simple as that. Or you can just simply email me at relentlessaudra@gmail.com.
That's awesome. And I know a lot of our military and veteran listeners will really gel with your personality, because you don't sugarcoat shit. And I love that.
Yeah, because it's just sugar-coated shit at the end of the day.
Exactly. We will put the links to Audra's website in the show notes. And on that note,
this has been so much fun. You guys are amazing. You guys are amazing. Thank you guys for having me on so much. Thank you so much.
Alrighty, that concludes today's episode of the Age Groupies Podcast with me, Lindsay Hiken, and my co-host, Mike Ergo. We really hope you enjoyed it. You can follow the show on Instagram at Age Groupies, join our Age Groupies page on Facebook, and look us up by name, Lindsay Hiken and Mike Ergo on Strava. If you have questions, comments, or topic ideas, feel free to email us at agegroupies@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please leave a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, as this really helps us get more exposure while we try to grow this little venture. And of course, if you have friends you think might like the show, please be sure to share it with them. But for now, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next week.